He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, welcome to The Alex Marlow Show. I'm your humble host, Alex Marlow, and I'm really glad you're here. It'll be a tough but important show today. I'll start with a moment of gratitude and thanks. The show is in the top 100 on Apple News. Again, it's in the top 20 for the news commentary category, which is really terrific. It means I'm probably beating your favorite show. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm not kidding. But we're having fun here, and we're growing a lot. And thanks to all of you showing all the support, telling 10,000 friends and family members, leaving those reviews, hitting the subscribe button, and picking up Copy Breaking the Law, which is continuing to get raved. So thanks a lot. A tough day today because Minneapolis gunman or woman, we don't know. How would you count it? We'll get to that in a second. Fired through church windows, stained glass windows at the pews while Catholic school students attended Mass. It's almost impossible to talk about these school shootings. It is incredibly difficult to cover this stuff. And I did a lot of these things live on air at SiriusXM, and it was always something I kind of dreaded because it's tough to have a take when you're in an opinion-based medium and you want to give out the information, but that only takes so long, and then you feel compelled to give bad takes. And I will share with you some of the worst takes that we've caught thus far. But what we know, 17 people were wounded, 2 were killed, and the young people, so small children, were killed. The shooter killed himself, and someone might say herself, more on that in a second. There are 3 guns used, a pistol, a rifle, and a shotgun shot through the window. So did not enter the church from what we can tell thus far. But clearly this is a hate crime where a godless, evil freak waited for children to assemble at Mass so they could worship Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, in fellowship and in unity. And at that precise moment, they were targeted and murdered, and that community is destroyed forever. There are children who are dead. There are people who will never see their children. It just as a Catholic with children in that age range, it's I have to disassociate to some degree. It's to present the news. It's just too horrible. It's too horrible at every step of the way. And we'll continue to bring you details at Breitbart throughout the day as they develop in terms of what mistakes were made. But I will share something that I don't recommend seeking it out, but online there is a long video, like 11 minutes or so, of this maniac preparing to execute children. And I want to identify a couple of crucial points about this. That clearly is a deranged, disturbed person. We're told as of now that this person was an adult, legally speaking, though obviously the mindset is less than mature, but a adult for all intents and purposes. And yet was someone who was able to obtain firearms, someone who had, I'm assuming, evaded a lot of mental health authorities or institutionalization, and probably should have been one where the community could have identified that this person was a threat and there could have been something done, in particular the parents. And I would like to hear from the parents. I would like to hear from any family members, any teachers, any employers, whether or not this could have been identified. Because if we don't start shaming people in society, if we don't start making this a collective effort, then these freaks walking among us are going to be able to shoot our children like fish in a barrel. And that has to stop. The premeditation level is truly disturbing. I'm looking at some of the footage now, which again, I don't think you should look at unless you really want to. It does indulge the murderers to some degree, but I will point out that they have a lot of slogans, a lot of internet slogans. So this is a person who is extremely online. That's what I'm able to infer with this. The ones that I think will pop out to you most are things that are overtly political, things like kill Trump. But also there's a lot of this sort of generic Gen Z stuff like skibbity written on some of the weaponry, and a bunch of internet phrases that'll be familiar to you. I don't need to read all of them because I don't think that's the point I'm trying to make here. But I'm saying that this person is clearly hates God, if he is godless at all, believes in a concept of God at all, but there's no God in this person's life, certainly not the Judeo-Christian God. And What's replaced it is clearly online. It's just the internet, and this person's life is spent on the internet. And you can see it with the obsession over internet phraseology and internet memes that was a part of the ritual that took place before the mass murder. And this has always disturbed me. It's disturbed me. This has accelerated in recent years. You can feel it. You can feel the internet addiction is bad for our soul. It's making it so that we are less godless. We do not take our time seriously. We do not optimize the time that we have on this earth. We get wrapped up in addictions. We get obsessed with certain things that are not real and don't really matter to us in our lives. And the obsession for online acceptance has replaced community. It's replaced family for a lot of people. It's replaced meaningful work. And our development has been arrested because of it. And I just find that to be incredibly striking at looking at these images, that we're looking at an extremely online individual who did not have a coherent ideology. So that leads you to believe that this isn't just something that you could put, I don't know if there's a left or right thing. Obviously, it's not a right-wing person, that's for sure. But it's more about this is a person who was deeply disturbed. It was missed by society. They somehow got firearms. We'll learn how they got those anyway. I don't know which firearm laws could have perhaps prevented this person from getting firearms, which is always important when you note this, because the left goes straight to the gun control. I've got clips of that coming up. But what is interesting to me is that this is a mentally disturbed individual who probably should have been in an asylum, should have been institutionalized, and instead was able to get guns, of time to go through this ritual where they're writing all of these internet memes and slogans on it and then go out and murder children while they prayed. So as dark as it gets in the world, you can't think of anything darker. More details emerging by the minute as I'm recording, but I want to get the show out there as fast as I could. The reports appear to be that this individual is a trans individual. And again, I didn't confirm this on a personal level, but it seems like there's a consensus online. This person's a trans, changing his first name from Robert to Robin. Robin's kind of a generic name, which is partially why I'm tentative here, because Robin can be a man or a woman. But that is something that, again, factors into that this is a mentally disturbed individual. And the trans stuff is generally a sign of mental disturbance. It's usually not a sign of something that's legit. It's usually a sign of someone who's disturbed in other ways. And that's the whole point of why the trans stuff is so nefarious in our society, is it causes additional chaos. It confuses people. It takes us away from truth, and it brings us into this realm of just absolute gray area. If you can't abide in your life by your biological gender, sex, as dictated by your biology, by your chromosomes, then what is true? What is up? What is down? And I think that's part of the fundamentals of why the left, which generally prefers chaos over order, they hate law and order, as I've been telling you guys. That's not just law and order, just laws in the books. That's just in society in general. They would much rather have chaos than having things be controlled and conserved. And this is one of these things where I feel like there's a lot of connective tissue here if this person does have play with the trans concept. So the reports are this person changed their name, and the photos online that are available, there's definitely one where it's clearly a male but has a female hairstyle. There's at least one image that has the rainbow LGBTQIA, 2-spirit, 3-spirit, 4-spirit, pregnant man emoji flag on it. Other disturbing stuff, this person seemed to be obsessed with Luigi stickers. Luigi is the Mario character, but we don't what that means. It's not Mario. This is Luigi, the guy who murdered the United Health CEO, which I wrote about a bit in Breaking the Law, which was probably inspired by online news publications who had become obsessed with United Health in particular. What was motivating them? I don't know, but it was left-wingers who were obsessed with United Health and extremely online people who are consuming this content and who don't yet have a meaningful career and who don't yet have a meaningful vocation and who don't yet have a family. Then they're going to be susceptible to radicalization. And if no one is checking in with them, who is an adult, can help them through it, then they're not all going to wind up like this, but some of them are. Some of them are just going to go to this end. And so we also have a society that tends to draw some of the dumbest and worst conclusions imaginable, and they draw them instantaneously. And this is what happened online almost right away. Left-wing figures took to the airwaves to say stupid stuff. It's not all left-wingers as well, But this was the one that's might get the most attention because it's Amy Klobuchar, who is former presidential candidate and a fixture in Minnesota politics, a senator, but also one of the best known, other than maybe Tim Walz, the most recognizable Minnesota politician. This is what she was up to at the start.
It, of course, makes me think about guns and all the work we've done to ban these automatic rifles and to do something when it comes to the background checks and everything, and we keep getting thwarted. We were able to pass a limited measure on a bipartisan basis, but not enough to stop something like this. And it just makes you think about that as well without knowing the details about how he got that gun, if the gun was legal, what kind of gun it was. But it was clearly one of these.
So imagine you're a family member and you're trying to get answers here. Imagine you're an extended family, maybe someone who isn't racing the scene, but you've got your favorite nephew or niece who is praying in that school, and then you happen to be an MSNBC viewer and you turn in MSNBC, and you've got the most prominent politician in your state who's talking about gun control and like what gun control could have been done here, what government laws to take away potential protection for the individuals who are there, and that's where they go immediately. We don't even have a body count yet. And we don't know who knows if all the families been reunited at this point. George on there talking about gun control. What is the gun control that would have stopped this? The only one I can think of is if somehow this person had gotten institutionalized, but we cleared out the institutions. I talked about this a bit with Charlie Kirk on his show today. So some of my thoughts are there if you're curious. But if we don't have enough, if we have any, mental health institutions. Clearly, we have a massive problem now with mental health in this country. A part of it is somewhat self-inflicted. I think a combination of these devices and the rapid expanse of the mental health industry, where people try to get you wrapped up in the mental health system because it is a big business and they get you there when you're young and they keep you forever. Of course, pharmaceutical industry benefits as well, though pharmaceutical industry also provides a lot of solutions too. So it's not a black and white thing there. But we're in this thing in this country where now everyone's got a mental health problem. And we talk ourselves into having mental health problems. So we closed the mental institutions and things somehow got much more chaotic and much worse. It's just a fact. So it would be nice maybe if we had a credible system where an individual like this could have been identified while they were getting the weapons, writing the weird stuff on the weapons, clearly dropping out of society. I'm sure we'll learn that. It would have been nice to flag these people and say, hey, if this is a legit threat, then maybe there's something that can be done. Now, you got to be careful here because I know red flag laws we're asking for a slippery slope. That's going to end up that just being a conservative means you have mental health problems. But if we had a real system where it was credible, if you were institutionalized at a credible level, then that would be great grounds to say, okay, well, you can't have guns if you could potentially murder children with them, at least some of these guns that we're going to learn about. So there's a way to do this that I think would be better. But why are we even on this subject? We're on this subject because the Democrats insist on it. You have to go there right away. You can't go to the godlessness and the internet addictions, and you can't go to the fact that there's no security guard, armed security that we've been calling for. I think we're going to find that. I'd be highly shocked if there's any armed security on the premises. This is a part of the world, Minneapolis, where they're big into advertising things are gun-free zones, which is an advertisement to any potential killer that it is game on. Just do whatever you want to do. So it's all bad. It is all bad. And the fact that this is how the most prominent politician in the state talks. Let's hear the rest. I got a few more seconds of it.
These automatic rifles to be able to shoot that many kids so fast.
Earlier this year, of course, I think about the attacker who shot 2 Minnesota state lawmakers in their homes near Minneapolis.
All right. So that's where they started, and it only seemed to get worse. Chuck Schumer pushes for gun control before the facts are even in. We got this at Breitbart instantaneously. But he was out there on social media. I'm horrified by the shooting. Students and teachers should... Pulling up the clip now. Students and teachers should not be putting their lives on the line just by going back to school. We must do more to stop gun violence in America. So, okay, that's what they want to do. I think that we should do more to protect children from crazy people. I think that should be the phraseology. And if you had armed adults there who were trained on firearms and could protect the kids, maybe that could have helped. And if it didn't help this time, it might have been a disincentive for people to show up, and it might help next time. Here's what was the responsible coverage over on CNN. Check this out. This has to be seen to believed.
It seemed like a rifle, he said, a semi-automatic rifle, and it went on for several minutes.
Right, and look, that's not uncommon as well. These things can shoot dozens of bullets, in just one trigger pull, right? And so what happens in this case is sometimes they have enough time to reload. It's one of the most horrific things for students to be sitting.
Okay, so this is a guy named Evan Perez, and I don't know why CNN, with all their infinite resources, multi-billion-dollar company, why they would have a guy who doesn't know that a semi-automatic rifle means one bullet per trigger pull. That's what it means. That's the definition. So he says that you can have a infinite amount. Let's play it again just to make sure, because this is so bad.
It seemed like a rifle, he said, a semi-automatic rifle, and it went on for several minutes.
Right, and look, that's not uncommon as well. These things can shoot dozens of bullets, in just one trigger pull, right? And so what happens in this case is sometimes they have enough time to reload. It's one of the most horrific things for students to be sitting.
Yeah, so semi-automatic rifle means one bullet per trigger pull. So, and they just let this guy out on TV. I don't understand. Is there any vetting? How could they have such unserious people at a moment like this? This is the moment where you need your most serious people, and then you can really build trust about what's going on. And at MSNBC, they're whinging about gun control, and then on CNN, they're doing this stuff. Unfortunately, Fox wasn't much better, and you always run the risk. You put anything negative about Fox, and they're just so retributive over there. Then I'll probably never be on again after playing this, but you got to play it. This was Trey Gowdy over on Fox.
Our system is reactive. Something bad happens, we react to it. And what people are crying for now is, how can we prevent this? How can we stop it? And the only way to stop it is to identify the shooter ahead of time or keep the weapons out of their hands. And so we're going to have a conversation of freedom versus protecting children. I mean, how many school shootings does it take before we're going to have a conversation about keeping firearms out? It's always a young white male, almost always. I mean, did anyone this morning think, I wonder if that was a female? Did any of y'all think that? I mean, there's been one school shooting involving a female.
It was
one. Yeah, Tennessee. But other than that, it is usually young white males.
Well, but that's also probably another trans. So this is probably back-to-back trans with the mass shooting. And how many of you were thinking when the Catholic children were getting murdered in a blatant hate crime, were you thinking about whether or not this was the race of the shooter anyway? I wasn't thinking about it at all. I was thinking how horrible it was for these families. And that's where Trey Gowdy's mind goes, is very odd. And, so that's what's going on over on Fox. So it's just, I know this is tough. These are very tough moments if you're in broadcasting. I always talk about this. I open the show talking about this. To try to come up with something that's comforting, that's something that is illuminating, but is something that's real for an audience in a moment like this is tough. But it's not like, let's trash white men. Let's talk about how to take guns from white men. How did we get there? That was pretty quick. We got straight to let's take the gun from the white guys. Which is the obvious implication there. No, we need to take guns probably from the trans, provided that there is a legit process where you can assess that they're mentally incapacitated. So, which is really challenging to do, obviously. But we don't want trans crazy people to have guns. They can shoot up schools. And if they do get them, we need to have armed security guards who are ready to deal with it. All right. It's so tough. Hopefully I'll have more clarifying content for all of you at Breitbart News, but this is as bad as it gets. And God willing, it's only 2 fatalities, but the message is clear to me. Open up the asylums, start diagnosing the trans stuff as a mental disorder as fast as humanly possible, and not transgender for everyone. We can't do that anymore. And then let's try to get the armed security guards in the schools and I guess at the churches. I wrote in Breaking the Law, there's virtually 0 hate crimes prosecuted against anti-Christian bigots. We've tracked so many at Breitbart News, definitely in the Summer of Rage, which I wrote extensively about at Breitbart.com at the time, which was, I guess, was 2022, where there was a lot of rioting going on. There was over 100 attacks on Christians to that point that I had tracked. And virtually none of them end up in hate crime prosecutions. I won't say none for the sake of I don't want to get fact checked, but it's a rounding error. It's zero. It round down to zero. So every other type of thing gets called a hate crime. Disability, religion, race, ethnicity, gender, aside from Christian groups. Christian groups get targeted all the time. In fact, the lawfare superstructure targets peaceful Christian protesters for arrest. And in the meantime, hate crimes are not prosecuted against people who clearly target Christians. That's where we're at in America right now, unfortunately. Think for a minute about the drinks that you grew up with and that you still love today. The ones you got to have at the barbecue or in the break room. We're talking about Coke, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, Diet Coke, Diet Dr. Pepper, my favorites, Diet Mountain Dew, the Vice President's favorite. Iconic brands, and they're part of the American story. And they have been for over 100 years. With everyone talking about American jobs lately, the companies behind these beverages have been walking the walk the whole time. America's beverage companies are making American products with American workers in America's hometowns. They employ over 275,000 men and women in all 50 states. They're people who show up every day, do the work, and deliver for our economy and our communities. See for yourself everything that they're doing at wedeliverforamerica.org. That's wedeliverforamerica.org. Makes me sad. All right. I'm not sure if someone passed Trump my book or not, though he has endorsed it. I don't know if it's on for top of mind for him. But Trump is calling for George Soros and his son Alex to face RICO charges. He won't allow for these lunatics to rip apart America, he says. So I'll read you the truth bomb. George Soros and his wonderful radical left son should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests and much more, and throughout the United States of America. We're not going to allow these lunatics to rip apart America anymore, never giving it as much of a chance to breathe and be free. Soros and his group of psychopaths have caused great damage to our country. This includes his crazy West Coast friends. Be careful. We're watching you. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Yep, it's good. And the RICO stuff is just basically treating it like he's got an organized crime operation. And I don't know if this is the perfect statute to go after Soros, but Soros should be on everyone's radar. As I've been saying in media, the stuff that we think of Soros, we don't think we give him too much credit, too much leeway. He's worse than we think. He single-handedly ruined our cities by buying these DA races. He single-handedly made it so that people in this country are not safe to move around at night in our cities. That they're increasingly becoming like the third world. So the murder rate in D.C. is worse than third world capitals. Finally had a murder yesterday, I think. So it was the first time in like 12 days. But the exception that proves the rule, Trump's crackdown is helping in D.C. And he should go to Chicago next if he can legally do it, and then go to L.A. after that if he can do it. But the problem is George Soros bought these DA seats and they altered the crime policy so that they're letting criminals on the street quicker. They're incentivizing crime and they're not protecting the citizens, which is also a bummer. It's an economic disaster for these cities. It hurts the housing. It hurts everything. Everything. Crime is one of the most fundamental things that you could do. Cracking down on crime was seen as an automatic for politicians. And Soros has got an entire political party coached up that we're going to go soft on crime. To the point where Trump cracking down on crime, none of them come out and say what Trump's doing is smart. They're all saying Trump is a fascist because Trump doesn't want murderers and criminals to be treated better than citizens. So I'm glad he's on Soros, and that's a good thing. All right, Cracker Barrel returned their old logo after the backlash from Trump. This is great news. What can be said that isn't obvious, but they had this great logo with the cracker in the barrel. Private equity comes in, a coastal elite CEO, this woman who, I guess she's based in Nashville, but she's, went to Stanford and has worked for all these major corporations. She comes in, takes away the cracker in the barrel, puts this super generic private equity logo that's super brand safe. And the backlash was so big that they changed it back. So I don't know why the CEO is still there. What's the point of a CEO if you make these big swings and use airball? But Trump gets the most credit, but really the cultural clout of the right is so powerful right now. That's great. It's really cool. We've never seen anything like this, where if we are able to use our cultural clout to make change at this level, and it's a very small win. It's borderline meaningless in a literal sense, but I think in a bigger picture sense that we want our voices heard. And if we are sufficiently outraged and people can actually think about it and think, well, actually, we're right. Sometimes we get outraged about stuff where we're not totally right or it's not really going anywhere. The facts aren't always on our side. And that's trickier. But in this one, it was obvious this was a mistake. And we had our voices heard, President Trump as well, and they changed it right away. So that said, they do a bunch of other woke stuff with this company. And they speak on all behalf of all the trans and the T stuff. Nolte is a very important follow-up on this at Breitbart today. And I might talk to Nolte tomorrow. Maybe we'll do that. But on behalf of Cracker Barrel's LGBTQ plus Alliance and DEIB team, what is DEIB? You guys fill me in on that. I got to be diversity, equity, inclusion. And what's B? What's B? We're adding new letters to that too. We want to celebrate you for being you. It's our greatest mission to ensure that pleasing people means all people. LGBTQ plus Pride Month each June is an important time to reflect on the Stonewall riots that began in 1969, evoking activists. This is just mealy-mouthed statement about trans stuff and woke stuff. And there's always woke stuff all over their website. You get hunted down. We're reporting Breitbart. I don't need to give the details. But what I do need to do is note that us standing athwart this nonsense is what is going to help us in the polls. And whether or not they change it back, what matters, we're showing cohesion around truth, about facts, about biology, and against this stuff where we're just trying to confuse every last element of society. We don't need any T's, and if we have T's, you definitely don't get any pluses. So there's not a call to violence. I disavow violence. So don't misinterpret that Soros-funded freaks monitoring the show. We don't need the T's, and the T's just go back to your biological sex. Trump's job approval is surging. A far-left AP poll, and of course it is, because you see what happens. This is who the left leadership is, okay? I'll go back to the shooting for a second. This is the Minnesota mayor, Jacob Frey, who might not be left enough for Minneapolis. This is how they react when they're in a crisis. Listen to this.
These were Minneapolis families. These were American families. And the amount of pain that they are suffering right now is extraordinary. And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every family should have, every step of the day, regardless of where they are in our country.
So he's kind of a pretty boy. He's very passionate, but he comes out against thoughts and prayers. This is the guy who was kneeling in a mass next to George Floyd's casket and was sobbing. And so this godless freak comes in, and one of the things that was written on the weaponry was, "Where is your God?" Obviously a deeply, I don't even want to say atheist, because we're so nuts. But don't just say this about thoughts and prayers. These kids were literally praying. So he's saying prayer doesn't help. Prayer, of course, helps. And so these guys are so mental, they've lost it. They've all lost it. And it just gives Trump just endless opportunity to run up the score. It is by being just, I hate to say it because it's such a cliche, but commonsensical. Show love and compassion right now. See if there's anything smart that can be done, like protecting the kids with armed, trustworthy adults, retired law enforcement, stuff like that. One retired law enforcement officer sitting outside the church with one pistol, and this would not have happened. And then so now we're in this cycle where we're going to be blaming thoughts and prayers. What is it that he's doing? And they can't stop. Judge Paula Zinnes, I brought her up yesterday, extending the halt on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's deportation. We got to keep Abrego Garcia, who's accused of child sex trafficking, getting images of naked children, not to mention the human smuggling. We got the Fed Governor Cook, who everyone wants to rush to her defense on the left. She had 2 homes listed as her primary residence. It should be grounds for firing. Maybe Trump can't do it, but it should be grounds. So she gets a preferable deals on this. And then she's collecting rent, which she wasn't declaring allegedly, on these homes. They can't both be your primary residence. This is what I'm saying, is that if she doesn't get held to account, that means there are two tiers of justice in this country, and that's very off-putting. She's not denied anything, by the way. So that's why Trump's polls are going to keep going up. He's raised $1.5 billion since returning to the White House. It's going to keep going up. Hollywood's MIA. We have a big report on this at Breitbart, that Hollywood's just out. They're just out. Because what happens when they pop up, we just mock them. Mia Farrow calling Trump a national emergency. You know what that just turns into? It just turns into endless content for me. That's why a lot of mainstream Hollywood, the Matt Damons of the world, George Clooney's of the world, they're not leading the resistance right now. They're taking a breather because they know there's nothing. Who are they going to work with right now? Who is their champion at this moment? Who is the Democrat standard bearer that is going to inspire? Is it going to be Jacob Fry with his don't rely on thoughts and prayers? Is it going to be Tim Walz with his fake swear word tough guy routine? Or Gavin Newsom with his weird hand gestures and his no high-speed rail in California? So they're better off buying their time in Hollywood. It's a good bellwether. It's good to think about. In the meantime, Trump's having a blast at his cabinet meetings. Everyone's having fun. And we're using the resetting of global trade to bring down the deficit, which is happening. All right. Last one I'll bring up for today. I think it makes sense to keep this one a little bit tighter given the heavy nature of the show. But the Chinese state media gushing over Taylor Swift's engagement. I just found this hilarious. Frances Martel is just unbelievable for us at Breitbart. She read the Global Times, as she is tasked with every morning. And there's a big report celebrating on the regime-controlled, CCP-controlled Chinese social media, emphasizing how great it is that Taylor Swift, who is Democrat activist, Biden supporter, and Travis Kelce, big pharma guy, are getting married. Let me see if I can. Okay, the related hashtags top Sina Weibo's trending list, meaning Taylor Swift hashtags. Talking about the different hashtags for netizens, which is their citizens online, expressing their well wishes, flooding of social media with blessings. I was very happy for them. So I just find this to be hilarious, and especially with these sort of off-putting engagement photos, which are so clearly staged. There's something off about them. Look, I wish them the best. You guys heard my mea culpa. I thought it was a total op, the Taylor Swift thing. If they're actually getting married, I'm guessing it's not an op at this point, but you've got the marrying of the biggest brands in this world where we're obsessed with corporate, where we're associating with different brands. We identify our corporations and brands we love. And we've got the Taylor Swift brand and the Kansas City Chief NFL Kelce brand. These brands are coming together for a great brand collab. It's just, it's almost too of the moment to be real, but maybe it is. And I wish them the best. Wish them the best. I hope they have a lot of kids and a big, happy family. Hope they enjoy themselves. They seem fun. They both seem fun. That's cool. I like fun. We're pro fun. I hope it works out. But I did love that the CCP was really jacked up for them on their behalf. So, because she's regime friendly, like her stuff is sanitized enough, you could put it in China. I think that's the point. All right, we'll end the show there. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to all of you in the audience. And thank you for joining me. These are painful days to go through the news. And they're a little less lonely for me, or leading a newsroom with all of you in the Marlowe audience. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to John Cassio for pulling clips. I'll talk to you tomorrow.